the county fire, my job is that they just cut off the daycare grant, and then so then any new parents that try to do it, so then they don't.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that.
Yeah, and that was sort of, talk about things, when you pass a law and you don't understand the consequences. What happened was, they expanded the eligibility, they didn't expand the money. So suddenly a lot more people are eligible for that benefit, but they have to pay them. That's,
Could that be going to do that for the school?
I think that, there's possibilities there. I think you're gonna see, more push for, more universal younger grades and that sort of thing. But however we figure it out, that's something where, instead of fighting over whether that's a problem, you now have the two parties fighting over whose solution is better. Right? That's progress, actually. You have to everybody's got to agree there's a problem before you can start agreeing on a solution.
With our government shutdown, we actually had a head start that closed down in Salamanca.
Has it reopened since, or is it
still? No, so the only other place we head start is something.
Or just the pet shops.
Other questions? All right, we got two. We'll go 1, 2. Just because you haven't had them yet.
Piggybacking off of what Jody had said about the mental health.
Yeah.
I agree, and I've come to other town hall meetings where I felt like more services are necessary. I'm curious your thoughts on the methadone clinics.
That's a good question, because sometimes they can be controversial. Sometimes people don't want them in their neighborhood. My question is, how effective are they? If they're effectively helping people get off narcotics, then there's a positive there. The concern is, where do you place them, right? Do you place them in a residential neighborhood? Does that then attract other problems to that neighborhood? So I want people who are currently in addiction to be moving away from using those destructive substances. If that's a way to help them, then if it's effective, we find a way to do it. But realizing the impact on the entire community with how you do it. Because, again, you plop one of those in a residential neighborhood and suddenly you've got folks coming around that, maybe you're in a tough situation and it spreads into other problems.
Right, even in the middle of our town, I feel would be an issue because that's what's welcoming people to our city, than this methadone clinic in the middle of our town.
Right.
And I know people, I don't know them, I must matter. I know of people who go to these and get paid to go to them, and there's drug dealers that drive them to these places, and then they give their drug dealers their money and buy more drugs.
Oh, okay.
And I know that there's people in town that are at drug houses that are in these clinics, and the drug traffic is still continuing at these homes.
Are they trafficking the methadone itself, or?
I'm not into the nitty gritty. I only hear things and see things.
Yeah. So you got to balance. I want to get people help, right? But you also have to think about. This is why legislating is tricky. You got to think about not just the goal of I want to help people who
new
are in
nation
addiction,
presidents with them.
but you also got to think about how do we do that
At
in a
least
way
the new nation
that
presidents
doesn't
with
create
them.
other problems for the rest of us. And that's the two goals. I think those are not mutually exclusive goals. I think you can get people treatment and do it in a way that protects, the health and well-being of the broader public. It's just you got to think things through.
So you mentioned earlier about your children being safe. I'd like to start with the Senate Bill S-2113,
Okay.
which is specifically for anybody that doesn't know, the Sexual Assault Reform Act, specifically proximity laws for sex offenders.
Oh, okay.
So it's 1,000 feet from childcare, schools, preschools, things like that.
I'm listening to you. I'm just pulling up the bill
Yeah.
because we have 10,000 bills at any one
Nope,
time that are up.
that's okay. It is an amendment to change that to 1,350.
So extend.
Yes, to increase the bubble, push them farther out, which is fantastic. However, that is not enough.
Okay.
We need to add to that playgrounds. We need to
Okay.
add to that sports fields. Sitting in the backyard of multiple sex offenders within this community is Crowley Park. It is our youth center. It's our newly opened ice rink. It is places that children are going and frequenting for more than half of the year.
Mm-hmm.
They can literally sit on their back porch and watch these children
Yeah.
play all year round. It doesn't matter that they have to be 1,000 feet or 1,350 feet from a school. It's not a school.
Right.
However, it is a place where hundreds of children are at any given point.
I would say I don't think sex offenders should be near places where children congregate. Period. Full stop.
Correct. So how do we as a community voice a concern to get an amendment made to increase what's included in the proximity law, not just the distance, but
Well,
what's included?
I just pulled up the bill, and it's a Senate bill that Senator Helming has, who I know. She's from the Finger Lakes, and if you want, I'll make a note for me to talk to her and see if tweak it. And there's currently no assembly companion, so maybe I can work with her on it. But if you're asking my position on where sex offenders should not be allowed to be, and my answer is they should not be allowed to be near places where children congregate, whether that happens to be a school or a daycare or a playground or any other place where children congregate. But thank you for bringing the bill to my attention. As I said, we've got at any given time 10,000 bills, so this is one of the reasons I do these town halls. It's helpful for people to say, "Hey, have you seen Bill X?" And then I look at it and consider it. Other questions? Good to see you. Yeah.
Kansas Road.
Yeah.
Funding available, and there's an assessment being done on the treatment plan, how to improve it.
Yeah.
Do you know where they are in that process? Because we have a task force association
Yep.
there, but, the city sent new mayor, we haven't met with her yet.
Well, I would encourage you to. I have had a chance to meet with Amy, and she did campaign on that issue. If you went to go by her campaign headquarters, she was talking about not having that, we'll call it stuff, to be polite, going into the river. I will also say it is a topic that I have discussed directly on a couple different occasions with the DEC commissioner. And if you recall, the consent decree was very long, that
Yes.
the city was operating under, decades long.
It was effective in 2022.
Yes. Yeah, and so if you,
That's the time frame we were given to fix it.
correct. And so if you then talked to the folks at the city, they would say, well, we're in compliance. Which, because it was so long, the amount of changes that we made over any given year was modest. And so now the current consent decree is short. And so that was the discussion I had with I had a very interesting conversation with the commissioner. We were talking about millions of dead fish in Ishway Creek and further downstream this issue. And she took action to shorten that, which means that there has to be more immediate action by the city. She also indicated to me that she doesn't want to set up the city to fail. She wants them to succeed, and she assured me that she would work. This is the commissioner of DEC. She would work with the city of Olean to try and make sure they had the resources to come into more immediate compliance. My commentary when we had that conversation is that, well, I think you just made a lot of people downstream happy that it's a shorter consent decree, because I have heard concerns on this issue not only from the Seneca Nation, not only from the city of Salamanca, but town of Allegheny, village of Allegheny, basically anybody that's downstream. It affects a lot of people. So I think there is an opportunity there, talking to the new mayor. Again, you're going to have a situation where she's going to need to take more immediate action because of the change in the consent decree. And I certainly stand ready to continue to be a help in any way that I can help to make sure, again, they have the resources they need to do this, but also to make sure that the problem's fixed. I don't want that, again, stuff going into the river. That's not good for Olean, that's not good for Salamanca, that's not good for the Seneca Nation, that's not good for anybody.
I think it's till 2020.
Yeah, which is much shorter than the previous consent
But
decree.
it affects our area, 35 miles along the Saladin River, where we fish quite a bit.
Sure.
Canoe and kayak and things like that.
But this exact type of thing is why I wanted the NDC on the Environmental Conservation Committee, because it makes it a little bit more likely that the DEC commissioner will listen, will be willing to have the conversation with me. I did mention it I talked a lot about the mental hygiene budget hearing, but the environmental conservation and energy budget hearing, because I'm on NCON, I can question that one, and it was one of the first things I mentioned in that, commissioner, because I'm questioning the commissioner, and appreciate the line of communication we've had on the fish kill and the line of communication that we've had on the Olean consent decree, and let's keep that line of communication going. So she certainly expressed that it was a priority to her, and again, we've had multiple direct conversations.
In one of our trips to Albany, we come to
Mhm.
Albany, we did get to meet with the DEC commissioner.
Oh, good, all right,
So,
yeah. She has been astonishingly accessible, I will give her credit for that.
Yeah, and it's an education process, and she's new to the job, and she has, I guess, aides and staffers that come in with her, but the hardest part when you go to Albany is, we're like way over here in the state, and a lot of the staffers are in New York City.
Yes, ma'am.
So you have to kind of take a map with you and say, this is where we are, and here's our river, and this is how
Yes.
this affects us, and here we are from, the Seneca Nation,
Yeah.
where, we're a big part of Western New York,
Yeah.
we got three casinos, we provide many jobs for Western New
Yes,
York.
ma'am.
So it was a whole education process.
I couldn't agree with you more. So if you come to my office in Albany, which is room 548 in the LOB, it's the legislative office building, everybody's welcome to come. You come into my personal office, the interior office, on the wall, above the couch, is a big map of my district. And one, I'm just proud of my district, but two, it's for the reason you just said. Where sometimes people come to see me are, constituents, they understand where Salamanca is, and these things. But a lot of times it's folks that are from the administration.